The National Dialogue entered its next phase with the induction of the steering committee at the University of South Africa. This follows the National Convention and the handover from the Convention Organising Committee. Now, for more on this and the National Dialogue, we are now joined by Professor Somadoda Fikeni, and he joins us now via our video link. Prof, thank you so much for your time this evening here on SABC News. Let's start off here. You held a two-day induction for the steering committee. And this pertaining to the National Dialogue. Perhaps let's start off here. What was the purpose of this induction?
The purpose of this induction was to help the newly formed steering committee, which is a multi-sector committee that will be the operational arm of coordinating these, dialogues, in order to give them the documents, the handover reports from the National Convention and the processes that preceded it, and also to define roles, because you do have the Eminent Persons Group, which is there to promote and advise and broadly guide on the issue of the National Dialogue, and the Steering Committee, which will be on the ground in many ways, as well as the Secretariat, which is based at NEDLAC, to say how these work together and also link up to the interministerial, committee, which in itself will be receiving some of the reports, and it becomes more crucial on some of the issues that may need to be implemented at a later stage.
And Prof, when it comes to the priorities set out for the steering committee, what are the priorities, particularly that pertains to the upcoming National Dialogue?
The main thing right now was the election of the interim leadership of the steering committee, because they were meeting for the first time, and that will give them time to meet, engage, and outline such priorities, working together with the aforementioned groups that I mentioned, and also in consultation with the stakeholders some of them represent.
And Prof, coming back to the actual National Dialogue, just last year we had the National Convention. We are expecting for the National Dialogue to continue this year. We're told that it should wrap up within the first half of the year. What does that look like in terms of us seeing this National Dialogue take place in the country?
Well, it would simply mean that a platform being created for citizens and being citizens-led in many ways, and stakeholders on the ground, where we have a consensus-building national conversation, which also review the past 31 years or so, or 32 years now, of how we have progressed, where we have regressed, what need to be fixed. And in the end, it should be a solution seeking, where the principle of co-creation is very much fundamental, bringing people and multiple stakeholders back to the fold to say everybody should have their shoulder on the wagon. So that is the main thing. As for the timeline as to when they would finish and conclude this work, I would leave that to the competent bodies, the steering committee, as well as the Eminent Persons Group and all other related stakeholders. Ours was mainly to facilitate that induction.
All right. And now that this induction has officially wrapped up, you sat for 2 days to get this induction underway. What is the next step? The
next step is a meeting of the interim leadership, meeting with the Eminent Persons Group, as well as the Secretariat, which is NEDLAC, to map out how they are going to work together, and also to assist the interim leadership to establish now a working committee, which should be dealing with all this work of coordinating and helping with the planning of the steering committee, which translates into how they approach those engagements with different stakeholders, communities of our society.
And before I let you go, Prof, how important was this process to ultimately see this national dialogue take place? I mean, a number of South Africans have so many concerns to raise and want the interventions to be there from a national point of view. How important was now to get this process underway to ultimately lead to the national dialogue?
I do think that it is quite fundamental and important. It doesn't matter what diverse views might be there. Everyone, there is a consensus from government to foundations, legacy foundations, and the society in general that certain things are not going as well as they should, and something needs to be done. And as South Africa, we have a history of coming together as different stakeholders and at times as contending parties who have different views to create that consensus and map out the future. We're a very resilient society with a great potential, but that can be squandered if such a dialogue does not take place. It may not be perfect, but at the same time, it has to be something that takes place. Even those who might be, having diverse views, the same meeting expressed strongly that we need to work hard to bring back the foundations, to bring back all other people who might be skeptical of the process or who might have not participated for reason A or B. So that is a continuous process, because outside a national dialogue, which will bring a social compact, which will bring everybody participating towards changing the situation we're in, what else would we have? Almost nothing. That's why it is important. We have two choices: despair and be cynical, or be hopeful but put a lot of work in crafting a new future.
All right, Professor, thank you so much for that insight. That's Professor Somadoda Fikeni there. He is the National Dialogue Steering Committee facilitator, talking to us now about the process that will continue when it comes to the national dialogue.